Good morning, children. How are you all? Children, I hope you all are fit and fine. So, children, we have already started chapter 14 Water. As we know, water is a precious natural resource. And, children, we have already discussed about the uses of water. Okay, in the previous class, we have also discussed the major sources of water and also the transpiration process. So, children, today we are going to discuss the different forms of water and the water cycle mainly. So, children, the forms of water that we know, there are three states of water. They are first the solid state, the second is the liquid state, and the third is the gaseous state. So, children, from this diagram, you can easily understand by the daily life diagram. There are three different states of water. So, children, after that, we should know that what is water cycle. So, children, you can see this diagram of water cycle. The continuous circulation of the water in the nature is called the water cycle. This is the simple definition of the water cycle. And children, with a familiar that water cycle occurs in always nature. And children, any natural phenomenon which repeats itself after some time is said to constitute a natural cycle. Means the water cycle has a similar meaning. And children, every year about the 11 billion and billion gallons of the water evaporates from the oceans into the atmosphere, and at the same time plants added up more water into the atmosphere. So, children, if this water doesn't return to the oceans, they would dry up in the 2500 years. But this doesn't happen, and the amount of water doesn't change in the oceans. So, children, the evaporated water returns to the oceans in the form of rain by the various routes. You can see these are the various routes by the help of rain, by the snow. Okay, so the journey of the water from the oceans to atmosphere and back to the oceans again is called the water cycle. Okay, children, we know that the water that rises into the atmosphere from the oceans may return to it in hours, or it may sink into the rocks and take the millions of the years to return. So that the journey of the water from the oceans and back is explained. Okay, we have already explained it. So, children, the heat of the sun makes the water evaporates from the ocean and the rivers also and the lakes. The plants also added the water vapor into the atmosphere by the transpiration process. And then the warm and the light water vapor rise up into the air. They are carried towards the mountains by the wind and the further rise up. And children, on the higher altitude, the condensation takes place and the water vapors change into the clouds. And after that, the precipitation takes place on the further cooling of the clouds, which causes the rain. And the rain comes down to the earth due to the force of gravity of the earth. So, children, the rainwater partly flows over the surface of the earth in the form of streams, rivers, and partly the sinks into the ground. So, children, this flowing water ultimately reaches the oceans, and then the water cycle is powered by the heat of the sun and the also we can say the force of gravity. Okay children, after that we can say the heat of the sun melts the ice and evaporates the water, and the gravity makes the rain and snow fall to the ground. It then makes the river and the streams to flow from the mountains to the oceans. Okay children? Yes. And children, we know the seepage stops continuously and it collects into the earth. So this collected water which seeps to the surface of the ground, which is called the groundwater commonly. Some definitions are there which are very important in the water cycle. The first is evaporation, second is condensation, third is precipitation, and the fourth is transpiration. Children, we all aware of these definition, but again I will explain you for your knowledge that evaporation means the conversion of the liquid to the vapor form is called the evaporation. Condensation means the conversion of the vapor to the liquid. Condensation is just opposite process of the evaporation. The precipitation means falling down of the water from the clouds is called the precipitation, and the transpiration means the loss of water through the water vapor is called the transpiration process. So children, today we have discussed about the precipitation, condensation, evaporation, and also all this process include in the water cycle. Yes, so today we have covered the topic water cycle. And children, today is your homework to make a well labeled diagram of water cycle in your notebook, and then you should write down the keywords of the chapter 14 water. Thank you children.